Wendy Lowenstein, as you probably know, has published quite widely. You might know that she has collections on children's rhymes, Cinderella dressed in yellow, or Shocking, 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 the improper play rhymes of children. The Immigrants, and then of course Weevils in the Flower, concerning the 30s, the Depression years in particular, and most recently Under the Hook, the history of the Melbourne Waterside Workers' Federation. I would then like to introduce Wendy Lowenstein.
My father was a city bushman. He went every day to work, same place for 55 years, but his heart was in the bush, and he knew that was where the real Australia happened. And I remember he gave me, for my 15th birthday, a copy of Henry Lawson, which had written in it, "We must be free or die who speak the tongue that Lawson spake." Romantic bush poetry stuff.
I've humped me bluey through all the state, with me old black Billy, the best of mates. For years I've...
My sister was the first communist in our family, and she used to take me to New Theatre working days. I was about 14, I suppose. The very first day I went, and I was standing there not knowing what to do, and a young woman came up to me and said, "Excuse me, comrade, would you mind helping me with the costume?" I don't know, she calls me comrade. I was converted. Then at the end she said to me, "Look, could you come next week too?" And oh, wow, try and stop me. Because it was such a wonderful thing for a kid to be treated by these very grown-up people who were putting on plays and were fighting for the peace movement and doing all these things. And it was such a whole new world that opened up that day, and it never stopped. My brother said, "Look, you should come to May Day, you'd like it. You should be in the Eureka League," he said. And so he just sort of took me there and said, "Here, stand there, and march." New Theatre had been an absolute joy to me, but this was better because it was younger people and they were doing really remarkable things. I was a child of the middle class, and I was a great reader, and so many of the young people there, it was absolutely a new life to them. It was a new life to me too, because I was a lonely child. And we had terrific social things. We had campfires down there on the river. And the singing will never be lost. The left wing always had the best songs, they just had the worst guns. We are the youth, and the world claims our song of truth.
Everywhere the youth is singing freedom song, freedom song, freedom song.
People who were famous artists, famous singers, academics. And it was this whole thing, it just swept you up. It was wonderful.
Frank Hardy used to come down at night and sit around the campfire, and Frank, for the first time, sang The Overlander. How's the Billy Band voice?
How's the Billy Band voice? Don't let the white horse stand there. Oh, tonight will be my hand.
And I learned that off Frank, and I taught it to the Eureka League.
We had a vigilante committee.
They used to come with their torches and look in the tents.
I was on one of these one night. You were dragooned into it, but you would see young couples at the camp. Obviously they had the hots for each other, but there were powerful forces at work there that not even the vigilante committees could have stopped.
The first thing she said, "I'm a journalist." Oh, she was a proofreader on The Guardian, wasn't it? And then we kept on going together.
Oh, kisses sweeter than wine.
When my husband proposed to me, I said, I really couldn't marry anyone who wasn't a communist. So he said, "I don't know, Johnny, you never asked me."
When I was a young man and never been kissed, I got to thinking over what I had missed. I got me a girl, I kissed her and then, oh Lord, I kissed her again.
Audrey Blake was the National Secretary of the Yerringa Youth League, and I worked for her at that time. I remember Audrey Blake went to a peace youth conference after the war.
In the Russian zone of Berlin, 25,000 marchers from 60 nations opened the communist-sponsored World Festival of Youth.
And Lord Campbell and said, oh God, it's embarrassing. Every other country in the world's got thousands of songs. I ask you to sing an Australian song, all we can sing is Waltzing Matilda, The Wild Colonial Boy, and Botany Bay.
And then some of the people who'd been to this youth festival decided to hold a local one.
On March the 15th, in brilliant Australian sunshine, people began streaming into the Hollywood picnic ground for the opening of the Youth Carnival for Peace and Friendship.
And that was held in Sydney in 1952. Another group that was important was the Austral Singers. They were singing there, and they had been researching these Australian folk songs, and they were singing them at this period.
My husband Werner was in the Austral Singers, and they sang Australian songs with choral arrangements, very quiet-like. He and Doug Bushby and other members of the Austral Singers were in the First Reedy River.
And the new theatre decided that they needed to do something using some of this material. They got together, and out of that arose the script for Reedy River, which was written by Dick Diamond. It was Sydney that first introduced the bush band using the members of the original Bushwhackers band. There was John Meredith, Alan Scott, Gay Scott, Chris Kempster.
And it was the most popular thing that New Theatre ever put on.
It was an enormous cultural revival.
All these things were coming together with the general feeling that a lot of people had, that they wanted to know a bit more about things that were Australian rather than things that were imported.
The success of Reedy River absolutely astounded New Theatre. People who'd never ever been to a play were going to New Theatre.
From Vermont to Bartholin, the shearers' camps were full. 10,000 blades were ready to strip the greasy wool. When through the west like thunder rang out the Union's call, the sheds will be sure Union, or they won't be sure at all.
The Folk Music Club did grow more strongly out of Reedy River.
A great number of people went abroad to youth festivals, so met people like Pete Seeger, and came home with songs like "Do Up for the Union Day" and "Talking Union."
What is folk music?
I'm no scholar, no authority. All I can say is that some people think folk music has to be 300 years old, good and mouldy like a cheese. Other people will say it's anything that folks sing. I usually think it's a quality that some songs have got more of and other songs have less of.
We started the Folklore Society of Victoria. Ian Turner and I started that.
That was founded more with the idea of studying and collecting material, the more academic side of folklore. The Billabong Band, leading members were Frank Nichols and Joy Durst. They started having regular, what were called sing-about nights. And they felt there was a different need for people who wanted to participate in singing and dancing. In July 59, they actually launched the Victorian Bush Music Club, now called the Victorian Folk Music Club. They were both joined together to publish a magazine, which was called Gumsuckers Gazette.
It started off as the Folk Music Club's newsletter. We called it the Gumsuckers Gazette, Gumsucker being an early name for Victorians. It was mostly an inner club thing with an occasional song or little story about some aspect of Australiana, and we started publishing the tunes and poems and songs which members of the Victorian Folk Music Club and the Folklore Society of Victoria were collecting. And then when we got a bit more circulation, we put out a more professional-looking journal which comes out 3 or 4 times a year depending on the amount of stuff which is available.
Pete Seeger would write me euphoric letters every issue and say, marvellous stuff.
When I first saw the people in Nariel, an area in northeast Victoria, that Corryong Valley is an isolated place and the radio reception there is very poor. It wasn't as influenced by radio as a lot of other places were, and they had all these families who were very good musicians and dancers. The Folklore Society organised this collecting trip and they asked me to go along with them, and that's where we met them all and they played all their music for us. I went to their New Year's Eve dance.
The old-time movement's been revived and it goes back for 150 years. It's been handed down from my grandfather who came from Germany in 1839 and he was one of the most talented.
Norm had just bought his bio-tape recorder. He was tape recording in Greek, and Harry took them up to Creswell and introduced them to Simon MacDonald. I think we were looking for another Manky Snowy River or Wild Trelawny. And Simon played his repertoire to him.
Boys, they make your heart in two. If ever you wax a copybook, you very soon will know. For we used to go to bed, you know, a little bit after dark. The room we used to sleep in was just like Noah's Ark. There were dogs and rats and mice and cats and pigs and poultry. And I'll never forget the time we had while down in Bungaree. In the old bark hut, in the old bark hut, I've got to live on rations in the old.
It was the success of the folk festivals in America. The Newport Folk Festival combined both the theatrical folk singers like Pete Seeger with the traditional players there as well. And it seemed to us like a good idea to have something similar here. Some of the prominent singers were interested. Martin Wyndham Reed.
Now come all you Lachlan and a terrible tale I'll tell concerning of a hero bold who through misfortune.
Glenn Thomas-Eddy was another one.
Polite girls, don't be too polite. Show a little fight, girls, show a little fight. Don't be fearful of offending in case you get the sack. Just recognize your value and we won't look back.
Mother, may I go out to swim? Yes, my dark-eyed daughter. Mother, I would go out to swim, but at the pool I can't get in because of the color of my skin, because I'm your dark-eyed daughter.
It was held in February in 1967.
Well, here's Danny Spooner.
She's a big lass, she's a bonny lass, and she likes a beer. And her name is Cushy Butterfield, and I wish she were here.
We got such a bigger crowd than we expected. And we had so many people they wouldn't all fit in.
One of the best known Australian songwriters, Don Henderson.
I woke up this morning early, said, morning sunshine, morning girlie, morning world, be with you in a minute. Good morning, a bottle with a little bit in it. Where were you last night when I needed you?
Now, the next singer is Margaret Rosemont.
The lady comes to the gate, dressed in lavender leather, looking north to the sea. She finds the weather fine. She hears the steeple bells ringing through the orchard all the way from town. She watches seagulls fly silver on the ocean.
I've got just one rather sad duty to perform on behalf of the Port Phillip District Music Festival Committee to regretfully close this festival and wish you all good singing and good playing until we see you again.
And now a singer who needs very little introduction is Declan Atherton.
I better have a cigarette. Frankly, I'll drop dead from sheer fright if I don't smoke now. I am a rake and a rambling man. Fortune I fall to where I can. Could I be, would I be other than a rake? That's a rambling man. I travel far, I travel wide.
69, we went round Australia for a year. I applied for a Commonwealth Unity Fund grant. Gave me £500. I got a tape recorded gift to me by some firm. We had our four-wheel drive emblazoned with their name, Australian Folklore Expedition. It's on the front cover of the tradition here, actually.
No welcome hand overstayed. I never linger too long, for I'm a rake, that's a rambling man.
Dear Shirley, I'm sitting in a tiny caravan trailer, which looks rather like a toilet on wheels, pounding on a typewriter in a camping ground in Geraldton, WA. Werner is working in Krasnostain's junkyard sorting scrap metal. Peter is humping bags of urea. His knuckles won't heal for weeks. And Marty is the youngest girl working at Coles. Richard's in the tent making a wire sculpture to send to his art teacher and correspondent.
As black as any crows could be. Cry, cry, cry. Said one black crow unto the other, where should we dine today, dear brother? Cry, cry, cry.
Now this is originally composed with myself.
Yeah?
On yonder hill, an old grey mare, I think, my friend, we shall dine there. Now that is why you'll often see a white crow among the trees.
That's how the old guys sing it to us. Wendy, my wife's got it recorded. We recorded a number of Australian folk songs.
If I go to a bloke and say to him, do you sing songs, do you play tunes, do you make up poems and recite them, or will you tell me about how you used to drive a bullock team, which is folklore proper, and he wants to tell me, as well as all that, about how his grandfather settled the place or his own part in the history of the area, I take the lot, because I think it's a sin and a shame to leave that valuable material because no one else may collect it. So I spread my field from folklore to include oral history, local history, and I was particularly interested in the off-the-record stuff, the things that tend not to be put in books, because people are very conscious when they're writing books that they are writing for the record, and they often don't realise just how much the byways of history are the fascinating ones.
Mero, eccolo. For Jabby.
A jabby.
Jabby.
What's jabby?
Jabby song, special song.
Jabby, Aboriginal contemporary song.
Oh, the whole corroboree isn't about the Japanese bombing, just the one song.
Only one song, yeah.
You wouldn't mind I sing this
I
to
love
you?
it.
Yeah. It's very good you people to come and helping us like these sort of things. Anyhow,
It's about time, isn't it?
Yeah, about time.
Dear Shirley, our Aboriginal friend Paddy Rowe gets $40 a week for gardening at the store, while Peter, who is 18, gets $66 for the same job in the meatworks manager's garden.
Can you use
to sing to the kettle? Or
Yes.
What's that for?
As long as you're making a noise, or whistling, or...
That's because if you go up to them, they could get a prize.
Yeah. Some of the boys, they sing out, "Hey, Nella, your wife's here, don't you sing that one?"
Which one?
Little old drawers that Mary wore.
Oh, I know the little old drawers that Mary wore.
Yeah. They were tattooed, they were torn, they were filled with babes unborn. Those little old red drawers that Maggie
Dear Shirley, too much travelling, too many awfully bad roads, broken pack racks, tow bars and trailer axles. In Whitnoo, Marty was riding a quiet horse when the saddle slipped. She ended up in hospital with a huge tropical abscess on her leg. Whitnoo is the most scenic place we've come across. The district has half a dozen magnificent gorges, all running into each other, and spectacular each in its own way. There are numerous pools of permanent water in the gorges, really beautiful, but the camping ground is rough as guts.
Ladies and gentlemen, the show is on. Ringmaster St. Leon introduces a death-defying reprise act by Dempsey St. Leon.
You had to start small, I suppose, when you started.
Yes, well, I had 4 elephants. This is sort of the backbone of it, and they're all good performers themselves and reasonably young, so it wasn't very difficult, and in those days things were much cheaper, and you could do more with £1 than you could with 10 these days.
What's your other name, mate?
Perry. Michael Perry.
And you come over circus family, do you?
Yes, I am. 2 brothers, my father and his brother. They had a circus together. It was handed down from him down to my father and his family. And now it's down to about the 5th generation now.
And this is common in circuses, is it?
Oh, yes. They all run down from generation to generation, like Bullens and Ashtons. They're all run down from their parents down and down and down, to the younger generation. The daughter's very keen on it, but I don't think the son's too keen on the circus business. The daughter likes the circus life. Lovely little performer, the daughter.
What at?
Well, does trapeze work and contortion work and all that sort of thing, bending and all that sort of thing, contortion work.
How do they learn it?
Dear Shirley, we thought we'd go to Burketown, the place where Burke and Wills arrived at the Gulf. The car broke down and it took a week to get the spare parts in up. We had to camp right in the main street near the only shop. Not a tree or any shade for the tent or trailer. The water supply from the only bore tasted so revolting. Werner and I drank at the pub. The kids would only drink water with lemon cordial.
I travel far, I travel wide, from where winds spring to where winds blow. O'er every hill has an unseen side. Crossroads all quarrel, there are 4 ways to go. Perhaps it'll be that I'll never know fame. Maybe again I will. Bright lights might never write out my name. But it won't matter if I am still a rake that's a rambling man. I am a rake and a rambling man. Fortune I fall to where I can. Could I be, would I be other than a rake that's a rambling man?